What do investment banking associates do after investment banking? Hi, if we haven't met, I'm Peter Su, and I'm a former Goldman Sachs investment banker and venture capitalist here in San Francisco. You might know that investment banking associates typically make between $250,000 to $450,000, and it takes about 3 to 4 years to get promoted. But what happens after that? Here are 9 of the most common exit paths. Some can be very boring, and some can be extremely interesting. 1, becoming a vice president in investment banking. The status quo path is you work for 3 to 4 years as an associate. You're checking the analyst work, the presentations, the models. You're helping manage the whole deal process. You're translating what the vice president and the MD want down to all the analytics and making sure everything makes sense and is bulletproof. And eventually, in your 2nd, 3rd, 4th year, you're starting to build your own domain expertise, maybe in a subsector within your broader industry group. For example, if you're in the TMT group, you could carve out your own edtech practice or your own cloud computing practice within the broader sectors. And you're starting to build out relationships with clients on your way to becoming a vice president. At this point, your path can typically bifurcate into 2 paths. 1, you can become more of an execution banker, where you're helping with all the technical aspects of, say, the M&A process, or you can become more of a relationship banker, where you're covering an industry and you're finding all the key players that your bank could really help with future M&A or IPO transactions, and you're starting to build relationships with them so that in the future they'll want to do business with you and your bank. For example, one of the summer MBA associates that was on a deal team with me, he came back full-time as an associate, stayed the course and became a VP, leaned towards the execution side, and eventually became an MD at Goldman as one of the senior bankers for the M&A practice. 2, venture capital. This is a really common path, especially if you're coming out of the TMT group. What you're doing is you're taking money from a limited partner. Let's say it's the Alaska Pension Fund. They have billions of dollars and they give your fund $100 million to invest. And now you take that $100 million and invest it into the best founders within AI that you can find. Let's say, for example, if you gave Mark Zuckerberg $1 million to own 10% of Facebook back when they first started, and then eventually Mark grew it to $1 billion, and you still owned 5% of Facebook at that point. So your $1 million grew to 50 million. That's a 50 times return. Wow. That's how you make money for yourself as an investor and for the limited partners that gave you the money to manage. If you're an investment banking associate that just became a VP, you might go in as a VP in a VC fund, or MD at a bank. Maybe you go in as a partner at the venture capital firm. In terms of why people want to go to venture capital, personally, I made the switch because it was more interesting work. Now I can think about how to invest thematically, how to invest in really cool, interesting people that were solving cool problems, big problems that would affect the world, where they could create products, create businesses, and sometimes create whole industries. The pay was comparable and it was better hours. 3, financial planning and analysis. Whereas in the accounting team, you're more looking at historical statements, in the FP&A team, you're looking at forward-looking statements most of the time. And a lot of this is you are helping inside a company now. For example, a coworker of mine went to a company like Gusto, and he would help them forecast out their annual budget in terms of their revenue, expenses, their cash flow. They would roll it up from their sales team, their marketing team. And once they create the annual forecast of the budget at the end of the year, they would then look back on the performance and say, hey, what were our actuals in terms of revenue, expenses, profit, and how does it compare to what we forecasted? And then you look at the variance. It can also be like the in-house team that helps to model out different scenarios when other groups need this kind of ad hoc analysis to see if different strategic decisions make sense. I've seen a lot of banker friends move to FP&A. The pay is typically not as good as banking generally, unless you get some sweet stock options, but it's definitely more chill hours. That type of work can lead to becoming, say, the CFO or maybe even the COO eventually. 4, corporate development. In corporate development, you are in-house inside of a company where now you are helping that company lead their M&A. An acquaintance of mine went on to join Apple in their corp dev a long time ago, and now he's very senior at Apple leading their corp dev. For example, if Apple acquired Shazam, that corp dev team would be leading all the analysis, valuation in-house of how much is Shazam worth? Should we acquire them? How much should we acquire them for? How do we do it? How do we negotiate it? All that good stuff. That's what the corporate development team would be doing. And a lot of people do it because, again, it's more chill hours. It's still really interesting because it's M&A work, but now instead of all that client service pitching in banking that you're doing, now you do live deals, but they're more spread out. And in between the live deals, you have a better lifestyle. 5, strategy and operations. This is inside of a company where you are the catch-all business person, where you're focused on these broad mandates like strategy and operations. What that really boils down to is a lot of Excel work, presentation work. You're doing a lot of SQL runs, you're pulling data, you're organizing it, synthesizing it, presenting it into a deck story, and you're working with different stakeholders to build consensus to shape the decision making for your company. For example, you could be at Meta helping them launch their new AR sunglasses, and you're the one that's modeling out all the projections and scenario analysis of the upside, base case, downside case. You could be pulling the SQL data of the past launches and analyzing what went well, what didn't go well. You put that into a deck to tell senior management and all the different stakeholders why this is a good idea. You basically use all that data to support this decision making and this effort. If you want to get more career advice from my own personal experiences and from the insiders in the industry, definitely click subscribe. 6, Chief of Staff. So this one's a broad catch-all for business generalists post MBA. I had one banking friend who was the chief of staff for the CFO at a big ride-sharing company. Another one was chief of staff for someone at a big comtech company. And chief of staff can come in different flavors. For example, for the CFO chief of staff, a lot of what my friend did was helping them with the fundraising, pitching when that company was raising hundreds of millions of dollars. For the comtech company, a lot of that was being in the meetings with all the senior people, noting down everything that needed to be done, and delegating and managing and following up, helping people stay accountable, being the go-to person, the gatekeeper to filter anything coming up towards the senior person they were supporting. 7, business development. You can think of it like sales, but for a huge channel. For example, if you did business development for Spotify, and Spotify wanted new customers, instead of selling individual consumers, business development would be building relationships with, say, all these different platforms like ride sharing. You'd build relationships with Uber, you'd build relationships with Lyft. And then if there's a good way to partner, you could sign Uber on as a whole customer for all of Uber. You can see how that brings in tons of revenue to Spotify. But these types of relationships take years to develop, and you're developing the ecosystem, your different channel partners, basically a big long-term relationship you're building. 8, other roles that are possible after being an associate but are probably harder to get into because you've been pigeonholed into finance for a bit longer would be product manager, where you're like the mini CEO inside of a company managing all the different stakeholders from the engineers to the marketing to the finance, et cetera, to have the product built. Another one is growth marketing, where you're fusing your quantitative shops, looking at the data and the numbers to do a lot of A/B testing on different ad creatives, ad channels, figuring out what the ROI is, and systematically optimizing your ads and your channels to get the most revenue for the least amount of marketing spend. Another one could be equity research. I've seen some banking friends pivot into equity research from investment banking, where you start following, say, the software industry. Within that, you're going to track like a company like Microsoft, and you basically track them until you can forecast out their model, what you expect their revenue and earnings to be every quarter, and then you write research reports on that. Wealth management is another one I've seen people go into, where now you are helping high net worth individuals, family offices, asset managers, people with a lot of capital, helping them allocate their capital to get the best returns on their capital. In rare cases, I've seen bankers become consultants, where now you're advising these large corporations as part of a team. You go in there and you focus on X specific problem, spend months analyzing it, breaking it down, and then you present a solution to them. I've seen some investment bankers start their own startups and become CEOs and founders of their own startups. And of course, this one is like the ultimate business generalist. You are wearing so many hats at the start of being a founder: the sales, the marketing, the vision, recruiting, to taking out the trash, stocking the fridge, getting the rent signed up, all this stuff. And then eventually your role keeps changing as your company goes from seed stage to A to B to C to IPO to exit, etc. 9, private equity. In some cases, as an investment banking associate, you could potentially exit into private equity. This is typically harder to do, and I don't see this that often. And I've actually seen some friends have trouble trying to move into private equity after being VPs in investment banking. The biggest reason is at this point, you'd be going for post-MBA private equity positions, but those have already been filled by people that already did 2 years of investment banking as analysts and 2 years of private equity as associates. And they probably went to a top 5 MBA program. Then they came back to be principal at a private equity fund. So now you're competing with people with all that extra experience. It's really hard in a lot of cases to join a PE fund after being an associate in banking. Unless you go to, say, a much smaller PE fund, then that could be possible. The cool thing is, if you are anywhere on any of these positions, your life is probably really good. You're probably making a great income, doing interesting work. Just in terms of where you want to go, it really depends on what's important to you, what makes you interested, where you feel like you can make the most impact. If you want to improve your resume and you're curious about checking out my actual Goldman Sachs resume, you can check out my walkthrough video here where I also give a free template. If you want to learn my exact structured process of how I got offers from Goldman Sachs, TMT, and A bulge bracket banks, how my students have got offers from Goldman, check out my investment banking bootcamp in the link below. Love yourself, love others, have an awesome day.